breaking through the glass ceiling, and that is the word from women who took part in a leadership conference this week. Professor Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse, and Human Settlements Minister Mamoloko Kubayi were among the speakers.
Now, let's get a breakdown of the events of the day. We're joined by leadership expert, Professor Majola. A very good morning to you, Professor, and thank you so much for your time. I mean, is that essentially the belief that you yourself even have, that, you know, the glass ceiling has been broken, that women now are taking their place at the big table?
Good morning, colleagues. Indeed, it's my conviction, my strong conviction that the glass ceiling has to be broken. It's very reprehensible and unfortunate that actually this concept or this expression, glass ceiling, was coined in 1978. So in the conference last week, many people lamented that it's about 44 years this expression was coined, and still we are talking about breaking the glass ceiling.
You know, as we're speaking about breaking the glass ceiling, Prof, I'm even reminded by the statistics, right? So when it comes to JSE-listed companies, for example, you have to look at how many women are actually CEOs of those JSE-listed companies. That almost gives you an articulation in terms of how we're faring in being able to even tackle the glass ceiling. When we look at top management positions that are being filled in this country, the statistics in private sector will point that over 60% of them are still aimed at white men that hold the top echelons of leadership within private institutions, that the bulk of the opportunities actually will come from public companies or public, not even companies, but public sector in its regard. So with those statistics in mind, never mind the unemployment rate where black African women are concerned and what the expanded unemployment rate looks like for black African women. Really, when it comes to even the notion of glass ceiling, right, it appears as though the system is still entrenched in patriarchy to the point that women have to work almost twice as hard to even be afforded as the same opportunities that they are equally qualified for.
Absolutely. These discriminatory policies, practices, tendencies, in some instances, policies are there, but they are not practiced in terms of breaking the glass ceiling. And you still see or find men, and unfortunately women as well, who are still suppressing women, because what emerged, what emanated from the conference was that, yes, men do suppress women, but unfortunately there is this PhD syndrome, pull head down syndrome, even from women themselves, that when they get into leadership positions, and then there is this me syndrome that you ring-fenced your territory, you don't want other women to come in, you want to be seen alone. So there was a clarion call that women and men must support each other. Obviously, men must support women and women must support each other. As they rise, they must lift others as well. In other words, they must hold each other's ladder. You know, that we see this thing that when someone is climbing the ladder, once he's on top, and then she kicks the ladder away, and then she becomes alone there. So there's this thing that women must rally behind each other and must support each other, and they must fight because they need to be there. We want them to be there. Actually, there was a clarion call that time is now for a female, even for a female president for our country to take over, because we've given men ample time. Over 2 decades, men has run this country. Now it's a time for women to be given a chance and see if really poverty won't come down, unemployment won't decrease, crime won't decrease when women takes over. So men must give women a chance. They've had their time, but now obviously, let's see what will happen if we are led by women.
Professor, we know that men will struggle even in the future to relinquish that power, because for them they feel that women are too emotional. Women don't, won't be able to run, with that iron fist because they're too compassionate and considerate. So we know why men are not letting go of the positions of power. But can we maybe then not sympathize with women who make it to the top, not keeping the ladder there and just kicking the ladder away? Because Faith might say that I've worked so hard to get where I am. As a black African woman, she said you have to work twice as hard, but I feel like you have to work 4 times as hard to even get a look in. So can we not sympathize with the fact that they work so hard to even get there that they don't want to then let the next one just climb that ladder a lot easier than they did? Like, why must I open the door for someone to get to where I am easily when I had to fight to get where I am?
And definitely that is the issue. When someone thinks that she or he has worked so hard to be there, which is not true. You cannot do this alone. There would have been always someone holding your ladder. There's no way you can climb up there alone. So unfortunately, we must just remove that notion that, yes, hard work is important, diligence is important, but you cannot do it alone. So it's important that once you are there, you must recognize that there are other people who helped my ladder, and I must also assist them. Indeed, there's these stereotypes and justifications by men that women are emotional, men are rational, which is not true, because we are all human beings. Actual leaders or great leaders, successful leaders, they must both rational and emotional. So there's nothing wrong from being emotional and rational. So those are just stereotypes and justifications that are there to suppress a woman.
Prof, as we're actually having this conversation, the one notion I want to labor on it a little bit is the role of women in assisting in the leadership of women. Because the fact of the matter is, and I was reading an article about this, I think it was even a journalistic study from Harvard, and they were speaking about how a lot of the bias as well still rests within women. So if you do a quick gander in terms of how many women actually see women as being adequate leaders, the bias are still swayed to favor men. And you have to ask yourself, what is it that is inculcated in our system that is so indelible that women themselves do not see themselves as leaders? They don't see themselves occupying those positions of leaders, and therefore there's a bias perspective of a woman in leadership as opposed to a man in leadership. I wonder if it actually is a pull her down syndrome, or it's a system that has been so articulately and intricately manufactured so that women believe that their achievement is in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. Not that there's anything wrong with making that as a choice, but not as something that if you don't want to choose it, you have to now automatically follow in. That to a point where our mindset has been programmed that we are the followers, but not the leaders.
Yeah. No, absolutely, a spot on there, Faith. And this unconscious bias has been with us for as long as we lived, that women must be subservient, must be under men in different all spheres in life, which is so wrong. We have seen that women are capable of leading. And that is why the conference, they said, can we please give women a chance to lead this country? Because we can see that now they must be really afforded that opportunity, and see if they can take over, what will happen. So these invisible barriers, which of course has been entrenched with systems, with mindsets, that even women themselves came to the point of accepting that, okay, as long as there is no men around us, so we are not going to do well. So these are things that we must correct, that we must do away with, and promote the fact and advocate the fact that women can be there alone. So I remember during the conference, there was this discussion or debate. Obviously, other people were saying, we need stronger men who would assist women and advocate for them, because now you see women, they talk these things up among themselves. So in other words, it's about preaching to the converted. So we need men to come and then be the one who are advocating these transformational reforms. And others were saying, no, but we can do this thing ourselves. Why do we need men to assist us? So you can see that also there is this tension or this debate, which obviously I think we need both. Women must stand by themselves for their own issues, but also men, they must advocate for them to say that, no, as men, we've had it. Now it's a time that let's give a woman to lead us and see if things are not going to change.
Prof, before we let you go, just how far will changing the language go in helping this cause, helping us get more female leaders? And I speak of, this expression, breaking the ceiling, the question that is always asked, are we ready for a female president? Because no one ever asks, are we ready for a male anything in leadership? It's always, are we ready for a female president, because we've never had one in 28 years? Perhaps, maybe let's change the language, and that could also, play a bigger part in helping us actually eventually get a female president.
Absolutely. Now, this thing of, are we ready for the female president? We have been ready long ago. So it's a matter of give the people a chance. I mean, remember during early 90s, when the corporates and government were asking, are we ready for a black person to lead us or in corporates, and on to find that we're ready long ago. So I agree with you that we must just now implement policies that are there and believe in ourselves, and also give other people opportunities that have not had them before. So this thing of doubting people, we must just do away with this. And we are still saying that we are ready for, as we have always been ready, for a woman president, for women leaders, both in government and also in corporate, to take over and to lead us and see. We've got, really, we are so convinced that things will change, because men have had their chance, their fair share. So now let's give a woman a chance.
Thank you very much, Prof. We'll leave it there for now. Leadership expert Professor Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka giving us the latest there in terms of how do we start actually tackling the issue of women in leadership. I must say that I actually like what he said, but I think that what we need to note even as society is the role that women play in it, right? And as I was saying, that there's actually a study that was done about women bias towards women in leadership, right? That it's not the men that carry the bias as well. Yes, you guys are, yes, there's still biases and gender biases that have been entrenched in patriarchy. And you have to ask yourself, is patriarchy African? That's another conversation for another day, right? But the actual bias was saying that women themselves don't see women who are in positions of authority as women that are compassionate, empathetic, and the like. So the patriarchy even managed to filter down to women, where we become then I call them gatekeepers of patriarchy, right? You ensure that the patriarchal system actually continues because of the or because of the programming that we've had over a period of time. And I think women themselves must take accountability and say, the woman who's my boss at work, do I always look at her as this mean, and there are always names that are associated with women in leadership, right? She is and when you have to juxtapose it to a man who's a CEO, do we call them that as well?
Of course not. Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So we need to be able to watch. Is she mean, or is she just assertive?
Yeah.
Because do we say he's aggressive?
No.
These are the biases in society.
He's a leader.
He's a leader. He's decisive.
Yeah, he's decisive.
He's decisive. And then if she does the same things, and this is actually a bias that's been programmed, if she does the same things, no, she's aggressive. She does not have heart. She likes wearing the pants.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
It's a conversation that will have to continue happening because it's systemic and it's in our psyche. It's in both genders' psyche, but hopefully it does at some point change. Now,